Set in modern Japan and centered around Ikebukuro in Tokyo. An internal monologue by Mikado Ryugamine while he meets up with his friend Masaomi Kita before school begins sets the stage. Mikado appearing a bit on the meek side, while Masaomi is much the opposite. And while Mikado is worried about color gangs, Masaomi tells him they're almost completely gone, but there's still worse lurking in the city. It also seems Masaomi has a lot of friends, and everything seems kind of normal, but it won't stay that way for long. This is a supernatural mystery series with an R17 rating, and it looks like a kidnapping is about to take place while an online convo informs us of some TOS violating behavior and some disappearances. The lads run across another one of Masaomi's friends, a black Russian named Simon who works at a sushi shop. Then out of nowhere a vending machine goes flying, which warns us about Shizuo Heiwajima. We'll meet him later. More world building about a black motorcycle and its rider with a cat ears helmet. If you've ever seen this helmet before, this is where it comes from. The rider of the black bike, who silently and brutally rescues the kidnapped girl, giving us our first hints at the supernatural, as she doesn't have a head. Her name is Selti Sturlson, and she's a Dullahan. Back to the lads, Masaomi also warns to stay clear of Izaya Orihara, and some gang called the Dollars, with another weird encounter as Mikado collides with a woman who has a strange neck scar, who runs off immediately. Mikado even gets to witness Selti ride by and seems to be excited for this new turn in his life. First day of high school for some world and character building, with a focus on a girl who's processing her father's infidelity, which is what led to the girl getting kidnapped in episode 1 and subsequent rescue by the Dullahan. Kind of an introduction to Selti as a character, though not much of one. Gotta keep the mystery longer than 2 episodes. Following her rescue, we get a second character introduction, to who can be likened to an antihero and a villain. This is Izaya Orihara, a manipulative bastard. He derives joy from testing people out of his own interest. He's the best and worst kind of character, one you can understand and agree with even when you want to hate him. A bit more world building about Ikebukuro before we're back at school, establishing Sonohara Anri's character next to Mikado, hinting that there might be something up with her and a teacher, with a small explanation about the online gang called the Dollars. Just myths and rumors though. The girl with the unusual neck scar keeps showing up too. Then when Mikado and Masaomi run across Anri getting harassed by some Ganguro and their fuckboy, Izaya shows up to stir the pot like a psychopath. Storm, calm, then storm again, with Izaya getting beamed by a literal trash can. Izaya's arch-nemesis found him, Shizuo Heiwajima. The two are about to throw down when fuckboy shows up with his crew for revenge. Then comes the real chaos as one of the mooks attacks only to get punched so hard his clothes literally fly off. Shizuo is a complete nutjob with a monstrous level of strength that only Simon can match. This is Mikado and Anri's chance to escape though. By now you've probably got a lot of questions. That's good. That means you're interested. Rumors of Selti are common in Ikebukuro, but the people who've met her are tight-lipped. Narration and world building provided by Shinra Kishitani, an underground doctor who lives with Selti. He provides a lot of speculation on how Selti even works, being a Dullahan who's lost her head, while she gives a very aloof and detached feeling to her character. Shinra monologues as he character builds Selti's existence and her reason for being in Japan, finding her missing head and missing memories. Also, Shinra is kind of a warped freak, in part because his dad was probably evil. So we got the Dollars, Selti in her head, Izaya and Shizuho, but that's not the only mysteries. Selti's on a retrieval when she's attacked by a woman with a blade, with the wound dealt whispering to her that she's a monster. The next day, Mikado, Anri, and Masaomi are walking together, Masaomi being a simp for Anri. And there's definitely something very creepy with that teacher towards her. But the teacher does drop the rumor of the Ikebukuro slasher, with some later talk about the missing Mika Harima, who's got her own problems. It's a very real conversation between the three of them, Mikado dropping some hard truths on Anri, with some real foreshadowing about Selti, the slasher, and the Dollars, before Masaomi goes around asking about said Dollars in an attempt to keep Mikado away, while Mikado finds a would-have-been classmate with the neck scar girl, and Selti is on the job from the opening scene of the episode. Scenes converge before it shifts to Izaya visiting someone in the hospital who seems to have a connection to Masaomi, and the high schooler monologuing, making a pretty clear statement about the plot.
It may not look like it at first, but everything that happens in this town is somehow related.
Yo!
It's all part of some larger, awful truth that's beyond our comprehension.
Back to the rumors of people disappearing and the dollars being involved, with kidnappers showing up again to bag a foreigner. That means Celty's on the move again, and if you've been paying attention to the story, you know it has nothing to do with the dollars. We also get our first real hint that this might even involve Celty's head. It's a bonkers series of events, all mostly side characters, but the crux being human trafficking and suggested experimentation. This leads into Shizuo's job as a loan shark bodyguard, and the increased activity of the slasher. This means character building time for Shizuo, his monstrous temper, and his war with Izaya. He and Celty even seem to have a fairly good relationship. The course of events and storytelling can seem disjointed at times, but you gotta remember what Masaomi monologued. Everything is connected in a way that no one sees yet. Because it's Celty's turn for some character building, it makes her seem far more human than fairy. But the world doesn't stop moving just because Celty has a rom-com episode. Shinra being more of a freak than initially introduced, and might even be involved in the human experimentation going on in Ikebukuro. Now it's episode 9 and we finally start to get something resembling answers. Namie and Seiji Yagiri get screen time, with Namie doing the bulk of the monologuing and exposition about Celty's head and where it's been. But Seiji goes MIA, and Namie, being the yandere one-chan she is, gets so desperate to find her brother that she goes to Izaya for help. You can expect how that goes. Turns out Mika Harima, who Henri has been looking for, was stalking Seiji until he unsubbed her. Seiji is also obsessed with Celty's head. So Namie grafted the fairy's head onto the girl's corpse, which somehow reanimated her. Eventually Celty and Mika encounter each other, which leads to a chase, while Shizuo ragdolls Seiji. Now Namie and Celty are both hunting for Mika. But what happened to Mika anyway? Well, she ran into Mikado, who helped her evade Celty. This brings Mikado and Masaomi back into the spotlight to change the plot back to the dollars, only for the second half of the episode to shift back to Mika is missing. Because Mikado doesn't know the girl he brought home is Mika, technically. There's also some comedy courtesy of teenage hormones with Henri, only for it to look like Izaya's previous mischief is about to land Mikado an undeserved ass-whoopin'. But Celty and the Psycho show up because they both have business with him. This leads Mikado to learn that Celty is a Dullahan and her reason for hunting Mika. Mikado, being the good guy he is, wants to help Celty. But after getting home, not only is Mika long gone, but there's some guys who broke in looking for her and are about to unsub him, only for him to get rescued by Izaya and Celty. And this is the real beginning to the story. All the pieces begin to click into place, like combing through names in the Epstein files. It's all connected. Authored by Ryogo Narita, Durarara began publishing in April 2004 as a light novel running until 2014 at 89 chapters across 13 volumes, with 2 sequels. Etsusa Ohashi series that published from 2003 to 2006 at 41 chapters, and Durarara SH, which started publishing in 2014 but went on hiatus in 2016. I couldn't find a reason for the hiatus, but apparently Narita has said on Twitter that he'd like to resume the story soon. Meanwhile, the Durarara manga ran for a 22-chapter Part 1 from June 2009 to April 2011, a 16-chapter Part 2 from September 2011 to January 2012, a 19-chapter Part 3 from April 2013 to October 2014, all drawn by Akio Satorigi, with Part 4 being drawn by Aogiri, which started publishing in November 2014 but hasn't seen a new book since Volume 8 in 2022. And from January to June 2010, we'd get a 24-episode Season 1 crafted by Brainsbase, the same studio to craft To You, the Immortal, Bakano, Inspector, Natsume's Book of Friends Seasons 1 through 4, and My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu. Then a 12-episode Season 2 from January to March, and a 12-episode Season 3 from July to September, both in 2015. And in 2016, we got a 12-episode Season 4 from January to March. But those 3 seasons were crafted by Shuka, who also crafted Natsume's Book of Friends 5, 6, and 7, Journal with Witch, and 91 Days. While Durarara is a supernatural mystery, it doesn't shy away from the teen drama or the comedy. It plays into the absurdity of the setting to keep it entertaining amidst a cast of characters that's everything from insane to idiotic. Most of them with their own secrets to keep. Take Simon for example. He's a black Russian who speaks in a broken way and works at a place called Russia Sushi. He's wildly out of place visually, and his manner makes his jokes have a hint of he knows what's going on behind the scenes. Half of Shizuo's episode is about his relationship with his movie star brother, who's not really relevant to the plot at all. Kyohei's crew is just a plot driver with personalities that make the city feel more alive. And Henri, who's the Ikebukuro slasher. Kind of. She has a demon sword that does some weird shit related to the slasher rumors, which is mostly B-plot. But the point is every character, be it main or supporting, has thought put into who they are as a person. Durarara also does a great job of blending the ideas of urban myths with modern architecture, like how the Dollars as a gang is decentralized and entirely online, despite having a physical presence in Ikebukuro, which has influenced the prominence and power of other gangs in the city. Celti is literally a fairy, and has adapted to the modern urban sprawl by taking the form of a biker, with her headless horse becoming a motorcycle. And in spite of her notoriety as the Black Rider, most people really aren't sure who or what she is. At least until she pulls a certain stunt. And then there's how her head is grafted onto a dead girl's body but still moving somehow, and the corpos who are trying to make money for it. Except it's a lie Namie created. It's a very well written story, but it's not without flaws. One of them being how much time Season 1 uses to set up characters. Whole episodes establishing who characters are, which can make the story feel slow to progress. The episode about Ryo's kidnapping and her meeting Izaya doesn't really add anything to the narrative, it's just character building for how twisted Izaya is. The episode all about how Celti came to Japan, Shizuo's backstory. None of it does anything to progress the story, even though it does deepen the characters who participate in it. The real story doesn't start until Season 2, with the introduction of Aoba and Izaya's twin younger sisters, which you'd think would be some kind of important to the story, but really they're not important outside of Season 2, they just kind of fade into the background. Shizuo's Russian assassin girlfriend has more relevance to the rest of the story than Izaya's sisters. That's not a joke, by the way. She starts out trying to kill him, and by the end of the anime, she's telling him she'll come back to him later. And at least from what I think, the ending is kind of anticlimactic and disappointing. Season 1 spends its entire time introducing characters and settings to us. Season 2 does more of the same, but the plot is definitely more intertwined. There's something really big going on and we know it, we just don't know what yet. Season 3 is the story rug pull that just completely changes the context of everything that's going on in Ikebukuro. And Season 4 ends in this way that makes me think the writers, for the show at least, were really just trying to have this nice, wrapped up, happy ending scene, and I don't like it. I think it would have worked better with a darker ending. Not an overly dark and depressing ending, but there's definitely certain things I think should be different. Like what happens after Celti gets her head back. Izaya's fate is left entirely in the wind, and Mikado absolutely should not have survived the chaos he caused. In a way, it kind of feels like an erasure of consequences. Because in a way we can reasonably assume that since everyone made it out the other side of the madness, mostly, there aren't really any major consequences to all of the craziness that occurred, which dulls the narrative weight to the major events. And then there's the fact that this is a convoluted rat's nest of plot threads. You might see one get pulled on for a bit before it abruptly changes to a completely different plot, or an entire episode might spend the entire time tugging on a single plot only to not touch it again for 2 or more episodes. When you can finally make the connection on what that seemingly random event was somehow kind of important to the plot. And this happens a lot, particularly with Celti's head. There are several plots all tied up with it that aren't apparent for a significant portion of the early story, so you really have to give the show your full attention to actually enjoy it. You can't just background noise it and expect to follow along with what's happening, especially when it involves Celti, since at least half of her scenes involve her completely silent, because she doesn't have a mouth. And it really is a show worth giving your attention. It consistently rates high, around an 8 on my anime list, for all 4 seasons. That's impressive for a 2010s series, especially for one that changed hands during its production, is niche enough to be a modern supernatural mystery, and kind of looks unfinished. I am the NBT. This has been the Noble Weeaboo. Like or don't, sub or don't, and thank you for watching. Durarara is an experience unlike most other supernatural anime set in the modern day. Urban legends, evil corpos, insane characters, and a motorcycle that sometimes sounds like a horse ridden by a woman with a cat ears helmet. It's just got a little something for everyone.